And by the way, Martech therapy. My background is psychology. I'm a applied cognitive psychologist. This is what I once studied in Utrecht.
Yeah.
So completely fits the.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I need to bring out the couch here and actually lie on it myself for this episode. Goeie. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Couch Confidentials. All right, I got it on the third try. Today, my guest is Guido, or as we say here in the Netherlands, Guido Jansen. He is, and for this, I need to look at another monitor because if I thought that my podcast name was a huge tongue twister, his role right now at Spryker is, hang on, Global Business and Technology Evangelist, in between brackets, Senior Director, and he also was a podcast host. So I'm going to be learning a lot of tips from him. He just said, that's why I usually do the intros after we do the main recording. So I have all the peace and time to do this without any errors. I'm going to use the Dutch word. Sorry. I'm just like that. Super welcome to the episode. And yeah, it's great to have you on here.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we have a great list of topics to talk about, I think. So
yeah, absolutely.
Bring it on.
Definitely. And although I have the sign here saying Martech therapy, I think we're going to go off on a little tangent today. It's definitely going to be more about marketing automation, well, partly a marketing automation. We also wanted to catch up on some vibe coding because when I look at your LinkedIn posts, you are knees deep, or I should say chin deep in vibe coding, MCPs, anything that has to do with automated workflows. And I'd love to hear about your experiences there. And yeah, in general, I think the kind of loop I want to try and get back maybe in the time that we have today is a comment or some research done by Scott Brinker and Frans Riemersma, who both were talking about something called micro SaaS, and that this vibe coding is going to be the gateway to this whole new level of products that companies will most likely be developing themselves and could be replacing a lot of the big names out in the market for, yeah, maybe best in features. So I'm curious to hear about your experiences so far. But before we start, can you do a quick introduction? What do you do at Spryker? How does that maybe overlap with the vibe coding, MCPs, AI agents, etc.?
Sure. And by the way, Martech therapy. My background is psychology. I'm a applied cognitive psychologist. This is what I once studied in Utrecht.
Yeah.
So completely fits the.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I need to bring out the couch here and actually lie on it myself for this episode.
Exactly. So what I do at Spryker, so background in psychology, but also always worked in with online with e-commerce. Started out with tech-wise, Mambo, Joomla, open source. Went to Magento for over a decade. Also did a lot of things in CRO, where the psychology background comes in very handy. A lot of A/B testing, user research. On the side, I always did something with community building, whether that was with Mambo or Joomla, like building language files, starting meetups, and with Magento, building this whole ecosystem, whole conference system that was rolled out worldwide. But it was always
worldwide. Wow.
Yeah, that was always on the side, and it was rolled out in I think over 20 countries. We had the same format conference, Meet Magento, and we started that one in the Netherlands. It was the first one. But I was always on the side. And 4 years ago, I came in contact with Boris Lokshin, who founded Spryker. And he said, hey, your hobby, would you like to do that full time?
Yeah, let me count for that. Let me think about that for one. Oh, yeah.
Well, first I said no.
Oh, really?
No, I mean, there was a very scary proposition to do. I mean, I've never studied evangelism or community building. Yeah. Again, I'm a psychologist, and with CRO, A/B testing, that's what
and there's the common theory, should you turn a hobby into professional work, something you'd like that you enjoy doing, should you put that to something that's paid for? Yeah. And you need to keep to a certain schedule and a certain level of wow. Yeah.
And the answer is a resounding yes after I figured out and lived through the last 4 years. But yeah, it was some doubts in my mind when I was asked to do this. But yeah, I had to do this.
Yeah. Oh, I can imagine.
I had to give it a try. And then started doing this. And yeah, so what I do at Spryker, I lead our community team. So Spryker, for those that don't know, it's an e-commerce platform, mainly focused for enterprise B2B customers worldwide as well. We have about 130 customers, so that's not a huge volume in terms of customers, but very much high touch, of course, with
Yeah.
those enterprise customers. And there's a nice community around that. And we specifically focus on developers with that. So we are at Spryker, we are the vendor of the software, but it's also like a nice ecosystem of partners around us that implement the software for customers. I think, for example, Aldi is one of our more famous B2C customers.
Yeah.
We also have a whole range like Schneider Electric. So the companies that have anything that you have around laying around with electronics in there, there will be a part of Schneider Electric in there. So those kind of companies that you've never heard of, we help.
I was just about to say, Schneider, in terms of name, I think I might have heard of it, but as soon as you mentioned electronics, I was like, no, that's not me. No.
Yeah.
I'm not their target market.
Yeah. And they're huge farming companies, for example, tractors and all kinds of equipment for that. And I really like B2B in that sense that you get in contact with a lot of companies that you've never heard of that are doing billions in turnover. And that's a very interesting area to be in.
So let's go back to that community building. I mean, you seem like a very extrovert guy. I think you get a lot of energy of interacting with a lot of various people. And with a psychology background, I don't want to throw out my whole history here on the table. But I think my first 2 or 3 girlfriends, they all studied psychology in Utrecht. Maybe they were former classmates of yours, but I don't know. I had this knack of picking out the psychologists. And I always felt that they were always trying. It sounds very stereotypical now, sorry. Always trying to analyze people and situations to try and understand where other people are. Do you feel like your psychology education is helping you in community building in that sense? Before we get into the development side of that role.
No, it gets it's interesting. I think because I think for me it becomes a bit of as a psychologist also it becomes a bit of a second nature to think of that way. But
maybe it was a first nature. Maybe you've always been that
first
way.
Nature. Yeah. I don't know. But not only in psychology, but also doing the user research. I think even more so doing the user research. Really makes you realize that you are not the audience or the target audience for this product, and you are not the user when you build something, and that you can have all these assumptions how your user will interact with it, and almost all of them will be wrong or different or.
I love that. I love that point of view because I think that definitely I'm sure you've heard of the term HIPPO before in e-commerce.
No, tell me.
I think it stands for the highest paid person's opinion. Oh yeah, sorry, you're being sarcastic. See, I haven't had my coffee. Rick, if you're watching, we need to go to Lot and Delft and have that coffee because my caffeine levels are dropping. But anyway, yeah. So, but now you've got me all confused now.
No, so but psychology, it helps you get into the mindset of, hey, we're doing this, or we're developing this program or this product or this feature.
Yeah, I think that's missing though, because a lot is still on that gut feeling. People with 10, 15 years of experience in the industry who feel that something needs to be done. And I did some qualitative research in the past as well. I didn't even get too deep into it, tools like usertesting.com. But as soon as I started analyzing those videos, those interactions and the results, I was like, wow, we are completely off course with what we think needs to happen because the users are telling us what needs to happen to make their lives a lot easier. Is that still something you see today, even on a B2B level when you're dealing with customers from Spryker, in that there's a mismatch between expectations and solutions?
Yeah, and the tricky thing with B2B and having a smaller community, I mean, it's all relative, of course, but I come from the Magento ecosystem, which has thousands and thousands of developers and freelancers and companies working on it. So in that sense, the Spryker ecosystem is definitely smaller. And the challenge with B2B there is definitely that the audience is harder to reach and harder. I'm not A/B testing anything. Yeah. There's no way I can get any significance on our
not on 130
on our documentation pages, for example. But we do have very regular. We have monthly meetups. Those are virtual. We have very regular hackathons with those developers. Then you get in touch with them, and then you hear them complain about documentation or certain features or how hard it is to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And that's the feedback that I can get into our product team, and that's they highly value. And some of the things they've never heard before, some of the things they've already heard 50 times before, but then it helps them to prioritize things. I mean, as every product team, you have to prioritize. There's never enough, even with vibe coding, which we'll get to. But there's always, you need to prioritize what you will work on next and what you will give your attention. And that feedback, even if it's just feedback from a hackathon from 5 developers, that's already very, very valuable. Way more than just thinking of a new product, building it in a year, and then seeing it fail because no one's actually want to use it.
I can fully imagine that. I mean, there's nothing better than hearing from, getting the what's the English term, from the horse's mouth. I probably completely off wrong there, but really hearing from the source ways to improve your product. I mean, it's free advice, and of course you need to be careful if N is 1. But if you're constantly hearing that feedback, that's definitely a good indicator on how to further improve your product. But talking about that, so you deal with a lot of developers then, I guess, in these monthly meetups with them to hear, collect feedback from them. To what extent on a scale from 0 to 10 are you a developer?
Again, things are relative. Compared to everyone at Spryker, I'm a 0. Everyone in our community, I'm a 0, and I'm the noob that doesn't know anything.
You can talk the talk though, but and you can connect the dots where they need to be connected, I guess.
I hope so, and I do build a lot of stuff myself, knowledgeable enough to be dangerous in that sense. To give one example, playing around with AI a lot and with MCPs a lot, and I made a mistake because I didn't validate this with my audience before. I should have, but at the last hackathon, at the end, I proudly had this a nice slide up. I proudly shared with the audience at the hackathon that we now have an MCP for the Spryker documentation. So when you have Context 7 connected to your AI, you can now read your AI can now read through all the Spryker documentation. And I got all these blank stares, and I was like, "Shit, who here is using MCPs?" And one hand went up. And again, so these are developers. They know what MCP is, but for Spryker, being very much enterprise, and all of those partner companies that we work with, they have all these certifications they need to comply with. So and a lot of them are German. I feel that also adds a bit to the mix. That all these companies are very much security and very strict with what they are allowed to use. So it turns out they haven't gotten around to getting security clearance from the IT departments to be using all that kind of stuff yet. So here I was proudly proclaiming there's an MCP now, and no one's actually using it or will be able to use it. Yeah, exactly. Not yet.
How do you, I mean, that's an interesting point, because as we've, again, just like with Hippo, I'm not even going to ask, have you seen this thing called AI kind of going wild in the industry? I think you have. I'll just assume that. AI, yeah. I think one guy wrote as when Builder.ai went bankrupt, they called it All Indians. I guess somebody, that's what the abbreviation was for, because they have actual programs sitting behind it. But anyway, are you noticing that all this hype, all this talk? You mentioned MCPs. We got Agentic AI, A2A. Are we leading? Are we too far ahead of what the industry can actually handle? Is that what you're seeing with at least with B2B now, or does it differ between regions?
I don't know if you ever too far ahead. I mean, you can of course overinvest in a hip new trend and don't have it materialize because no one's adopting it, and that's why you need to do that user research or market research. I mean, it doesn't have to be. You need to know what your adoption rate will be, right?
Yeah.
Or in some reasonable fashion, have an idea about that. But I think this technology is the LLMs. It's so generic how you can apply it with everything, and also with automation tools like Anyden or Zapier or Make or whatever you're using. So generic you can apply it to everything. So there will be a use case for it within your company, and these are tools. I think if you start learning them and start digging into them, there will be use cases, and you will be applying them left and right once you have approval from IT.
Yeah. Not in Germany though, but yeah.
No. So, internally at Spryker, we do have approval to use a lot of AI already. But of course, there's always this lag between, I want to use this today, and then there always needs to be this check, which makes sense. I mean, I'm huge. nothing against IT or legal. I'm big friends with them, and especially with the big clients we work with. This is very important to do. But I'm also literally helping them to improve the form with things like n8n to make their lives easier, to make the approval process faster, for example.
Oh, that's an awesome segue into n8n, of course, because that's something that we've been connecting a little bit on LinkedIn, vibe coding. But let's start with n8n, because you just dropped that name in there. When did you get started with n8n? And let me again do that scale thing, because even though you say like, oh my goodness, he's got the n8n. I don't even have any n8n swag here. I feel left out. No, but I think you started earlier. When did you start with n8n?
I think it was beginning of the year.
Oh, okay.
And it took a couple of weeks to get it approved.
Oh, okay.
I also use it myself, so start playing around with that. Like in the beginning, you mentioned I was a former podcast host, but the website is still there and it still gets quite some traffic and listens. So what I thought, the website was on Webflow, and it's in 4 different languages, right? CRO Cafe in Dutch, English, Spanish, and German. Version is still active, by the way.
Okay, somebody's still doing the podcast there.
Yeah, so basically it turned into a franchise.
That's what I need to do. All right, let me make some notes here.
Yeah. We entered the podcast host section of this episode. All the tips. Now, but I want to transfer that to a self-hosted something on Netlify with Astro. So I got rid of all the monthly costs that I had with Webflow, and I use n8n for a lot of the synchronization with Transistor, which is my podcast host. So when there's a new episode there, it automatically now is posted on the website as well. So previously it was like duplicate work. You need to add your podcast to Transistor and add it to the website as well. It now automatically downloads all your information, also from LinkedIn. So you only need to have one LinkedIn link from the guest, and it automatically pulls all the information, like the avatar.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
The biography, even the history of the jobs that you had since the episodes.
Yeah.
And it's all pulled in and through n8n and Epify. I'm using that for the data with LinkedIn. So I was building all of that with Cloud Codes, most of it. And so that's where I got the experience, even without approval from Spryker, because this is all.
Yeah, it's all personal. Yeah, it's all CRO Cafe.
So, but with Spryker, it's a generic tool, right? We were using Workato before, and n8n is a bit easier for a broader audience. I mean, Spryker, we are a tech company. I'm not saying n8n is easy enough for everyone to use it, but the barriers is definitely lower.
Yeah,
we have some enablement in place for people that do a course and then start working with n8n, and then let's see where people end up. And we did some workshops internally, and then do some guidance with those people. Again, that this is not an official part of my job, just something I'm passionate about. I hate doing things twice.
No, but absolutely. But I think there's a lot to be gained there. I mean, especially with your interaction with the community, feedback that you can collect, emails that come in. You want to build out roadmaps or have ideas on like an upvoting system on ideas that get shared within the community. And I think n8n is just a fantastic platform, except for the self-hosted business plan, which
you just changed 2 weeks ago.
That shocked me. I mean, I'm on the personal self-hosted one for $6 a month, and running 40,000 executions. Well, that was at least the last 7 days, and I couldn't. I did some calculations like, why would I go to a paid plan now? And especially if you're in a situation like you and I are with your CR Cafe, where you initially used it, and maybe for one client that I'm using it with now, I have no case to go out and say, hey, I'm going to pay a few €100 a month to do pretty much the same thing. How has your view, because I'm sure you've used Zapier in the past as well. How would you compare the two? And like you mentioned, n8n is not for everyone, and you can't come in without any technical knowledge. You don't need to be a full-on, you don't need to be that 10 on a scale of 0 to 10, for developer. But how would you compare the two, in your opinion?
I find it easier to work with, and then also has faster adoption of the whole AI hype. I mean, n8n itself is not an AI tool, right? It's just automation. But I feel I have more control over what's happening, and in general, just easier to work with. So that's definitely very much a personal preference on how the tool works. I've been using Zapier for, I think, better part of the last 10 years.
Wow.
If this, then that as well. Also for a lot of marketing stuff, mainly around the Magento community that I had before, and probably the beginning of Zero Cafe as well with Zapier. But yeah, everything moved to N8N.
Yeah, and you made a good point about N8N. It's especially when the AI became available. I think the nodes, as they call them within N8N, for example, for an agent, they were there a lot quicker than Zapier, from my experience. I don't work with Zapier a lot, so I probably missed an update somewhere. But as soon as I saw that available with N8N, a lot of things changed for me. Going back,
and you have the ability to self-host, right? Like I said, you can have unlimited workflows on the self-hosted, and now also on the SaaS version actually.
Yeah,
they changed that as well recently. So that's a great deal. And with Zapier, I was always running into the limits that I had there. So if you remove those limits, you also start thinking way more broadly about what you can do with the tool, even if it's not making you money directly or saving you directly a ton of time.
Yeah,
even the smaller things become more attractive. I had the same experience with Claude Code. I was vibe coding stuff left and right with my own websites before, and I did it with mainly connected to Open Router, because then at least you have one contract. Regardless of the model you use, you have one contract, so that's very easy. You can switch all the time, but still that ramps up pretty quickly. I think in November, December, I had a couple of €1,000 spent on that. I'm like, fuck.
Oh, you were using the actual API, not your like a Max account or something. I've seen stories of that.
No, there was no Max account in November, December,
and especially not connected to the CLI version.
Yeah, and but since using Claude Code, it's very much freeing if there's a cap that you have just €200. I mean, it's still still not nothing, especially if you use to the 6 or 20 euro plans. But if you can also with Claude Code, there's this. In the CLI, you can also add a plugin to see what you're actually using.
Yeah,
I was in the first month, I was like €6,000. I'm like, okay, I'm glad I have a max.
Wow.
I think that's just because I'm really bad at developing. Again, I'm that zero on that scale, so I need to redo a lot of things. So probably actual developers won't need that much.
So on the scale from 0 to 10, that's the divide value of your monthly cost. If you're an 8, you can take the 5,000-6,000 divided by 8, and that would be your normal cost.
If you're an 8, 9, or 10 at developer scale, you don't need Claude Code at all.
That's true. Good point.
You have to do it, and I cannot live without. So
yeah, I had one loop a few weeks ago in N8N, and I had this limit on. We were using OpenAI API. And I was getting these emails saying, "Hey, you hit your limit."
Yeah.
I was like, "All right, yeah, that's usual." I knew they were going to dump a lot of files that needed processing into the folder, and it was like a few hours later, it's like another one. I was like, "Okay." I don't know how many files I contacted. No, we're already done. It got stuck in a loop, and after I think like 3 attempts, I hit my monthly limit. And then it stopped, and I was so glad that you can put in these like little fail safes, because it was just continuously processing requests over and over again. I had a mistake in one of the loops in N8N to do a postcode check. But it's I hope you didn't get into trouble with that at home. And that any summer, I saw that you went to France for the holiday. Now I hope you weren't aiming for Japan or something this year. Honey, we can't go anymore.
So one other thing I found very interesting what happened, because if you remove the limits, I started using it for a lot of other things as well, not just producing code, but also, again, me being that zero on the developer scale, I have this long list on GitHub of start repositories where I think in the last couple of years, where I think, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Let's start this. That's interesting. Let's start this. And then I look at the long list of how you need to install this on your Mac or on Linux, and I think, this is going to be probably a couple of hours before I get this properly installed, before I can even start using this tool. But now with Claude Code, I just ask it, I just give it the URL of this repository, ask it, hey, can you install this? And 5 minutes later, or whatever time it takes, I can start using this tool, which is amazing. I'm not producing any code. I'm not publishing anything. I'm not creating anything with security. I might be using something
Yeah.
security issues. But I'm just installing it on my local system, preferably in a Docker environment, and then I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
And that's already it's also a very nice side effect that I found with using all these LLMs.
Yeah, no, it does open up, because I was working on one project that would generate mock data for CDPs or for any kind of system, and it would just send out all these events and as lifelike as possible. But I was working with a database, I was working with API keys, and then I think I was watching this video on YouTube, and the guy said, you know what you need to do every time you do work with Cloud Code, you need to say, hey, perform it like a security audit. And I did that. And it said, hey, you've got exposed API keys. You've got, I had a Superbase MCP connected with Cloud Code CLI. He said, you've got personal data in some of these fields that is not encrypted. Let's make sure that we fix all of that. And it will just go out and fix it. And then I said, okay, what can we do in the future to prevent this? And then this is when the command, I think they're called commands, came out. You can no, not commands. What was it? Anyway, these little scripts that you can, your own / scripts that you can build within the CLI. And one of them is a pre-deploy. And I just include this kind of security audit in there. And I fully agree with you. I don't think developers are going away, far from it. No. But it has extended my horizon on and my vision of coding. And I'm not sure about you, but back in your day when you were working with Magento and Mambo, and my role when I work with CDPs is partly I sit between the business, I sit between marketing, and I sit between developers. But I knew that I was onto something at the point after I learned how to do JavaScript. I learned how to do some Python, and I did some Swift to, I wanted to build my own iOS app so I can put analytics tracking in there and CDP tracking in there. And just by doing things. And I think what I'm feeling now with Cloud Code is it's not going to make me a star developer, but it's going to help me better understand how a project like that is built up from the ground.
Yeah. And it's, well, I don't think developers are going away. I am afraid about the junior developers. I mean, that's already happening, right? They're not being hired, and it's at such a massive scale that it's hard to imagine, like, how's that going to work in like a couple of years when you need that senior developer that's
with some experience, and you need to have them.
Where's that person coming from? I don't know. I mean, we had this in the past, of course. I mean, robots, machines have always taken jobs, and the current developers that are working on sites or programs also don't know assembly, so that's abstracted away, so it's also not needed. But it's going so fast right now that I'm very much wondering how that's going to be. No idea.
No, but going back to Spryker and the kind of the AI mini AI revolution that you're running there, what was your approach? Because if I look at the Martech industry now, and I personally, I focus a lot on customer data platforms. Everyone, it's like this must-have label you need to have on your product. And I see a lot of different applications being built on AI. Some are doing, give me some reporting on the data that we have in our data warehouse. Others are, can you build out a customer journey? Can you build the content for an email, et cetera? So there's a lot of different ways, and even identity graphs. There's a lot of different ways. How would you describe your approach to Spryker, and maybe pushing them, maybe it was a common discussion already, on becoming more, not necessarily focused, but at least active with AI?
I think so with my role, I'm part of the Customer for Life department, which mainly focus on customer success, community, education.
I like the name, by the way, Customer for Life.
Yeah. That's the name of the department. Well, actually, we have a very high retention rate with our customers. So that we don't have that many customers. It's around 130 because they're enterprise, they pay a lot of money. It's very important for us to keep them, of course, and that works out very well. And when I started with, and then the beginning of this year, for example, I gave a couple of demos internally on how to do this, mainly within our own department, and that spread a bit. The product is a different department, but they're also working on it and using it, for example, with on the documentation side of things, the documentation website to make automations there. In the product itself, Spryker is mainly it's a backend tool for commerce, and most of the AI applications. So we are either enabling customers to use their own AI. Again, these are enterprise customers that are often using their own AI. Or their own hosted AI. Maybe they use a proprietary model, but still self-hosted to maintain their data integrity and keep it in-house. So we enable them using that. And for the front end, most customers build custom front ends. And we have a couple of modules like creating automated descriptions for your product. For example, if those are missing, creating product images or 3D versions of your product. But we don't label Spryker as an AI tool at all. I don't think I think we should be doing that because that's not the case.
And it doesn't sound like you're using it to kind of well, you do have AI feature. Well, that's a difficult one to say, but sorry, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think, I also see a lot of other companies that probably shouldn't be telling that they are an AI company or an AI product. But yeah, it's about the enablement of the customers and what they want to do with AI, right?
Is that a request you got from the customer saying, because that's something I've never been able to ask anyone in the industry. I mean, I feel a lot of this hype from companies labeling or adding features around AI has been driven from the company themselves and not necessarily from the customers. What's it been with your experience with Spryker?
I think most of our features with AI actually come from hackathons.
Oh, really?
So it's the developers working with Spryker directly. So not necessarily on the customer side, but mainly on the partner side, that want to, despite not using MCPs, that they want to implement or start using. Hey, this will be a cool feature. This will be a cool feature. Or and these are not always features for the merchant or the user of the web shop, but also for the developers themselves to make their life as a developer easier. There's a lot of AI tools that you can use for that as well.
Yeah.
Plugins for their IDE, for example, that make it easier to work with both AI and Spryker. So I think most of them come from that side. And then we have a couple of customers indeed asking for AI features, making their lives easier. And that's mostly, I don't think that we're working on a couple of bigger integrations, but the initial requests come in the style from what they see day to day when using ChatGPT.
Yeah,
which is a bit of I made a comparison before using if you have LLMs at your disposal and then just using ChatGPT is like you have this chef cook available and you ask him to make you a ham sandwich or something. It's but it's a good first step.
And I was thinking, because you mentioned it earlier, saying it depends what you use the LLM for. It's like, the same LLM that you might be using to vibe code your next unicorn product or a SaaS project is the same LLM that some people are using to get a recipe for apple pie.
Yeah,
it's crazy. Yeah. It really depends on what you intend to do with it, and that's why I always have to giggle. And I know I'm a 50-year-old man and I shouldn't say the word giggle according to my daughter, but I do giggle. All these people complaining, saying, ChatGPT 5 just dropped. It can't even draw a map of the world or Europe. And I'm like, you're missing the point of of how it works and what it's supposed to solve for. And it's
well, but it's also these models are mimicking people, right? I mean, they're trained on things that people wrote, and they're word generators. So you need to, but it's deceptive. I get that people. I mean, it can create these maps because it also has like this image feature, and it seems smart, but
so you're saying all the map data is based on tests that people have made and how they have written the names of these countries phonetically, and they've all failed.
Maybe I don't know. OpenAI doesn't disclose their training data, right? So
no, exactly.
We don't know. But no, you make a good point that it is important for people to get an understanding on what LLMs are and what they can and cannot do. I mean, we can use them for a lot of things, but also you need to be careful with what they cannot do. And there's limits. There's clear limits. Like I don't see AGI emerging from LLMs. I just don't see how this is going to happen anytime soon at all, just because of the nature of what it is.
What the source of an LLM is. It's already existing written text.
Yeah, it's statistical probability what you're working on. So there's a lot of limitations there, but that's part of the education. I think that we have when communicating about that as well. Part of the responsibility for people that are working with it, also talking about that side. Yes, it's amazing. Yes, we can do a lot of things. Like you said, if I had this like 20 years ago, that would be amazing. I would have
We'd
so
all be
much fun.
gurus.
Yeah, exactly. That would be. You can, like I said, I can now install things from GitHub that I never did before. But yeah, there's also limitations there, definitely. Like I did an internal workshop, and we didn't give them too much information. We just said, hey, we have and then it's coming up. It's going to be approved. And we now have access to, I don't know what we had at the time, like ChatGPT. I think Perplexity we just had access to. Gemini we had access to, so we had a couple of LLMs available, and we were like, okay, let's sit down. What are the biggest hurdles? What do we want to do? What do we want this AI to do? We have this now, so let's brainstorm as a team with 30, 35 people. Let's see what we can come up with. And one of the teams, nothing bad about the team, but one of the things they came up with is, let's connect the AI to real world data about our customers, and interconnect it with internal data, and then as the LLM, like make a ranking on which customers we need to pay attention to first, which are the most likely to churn, highest churn risk, and I'm like, I'd love to have this, but could you do this reliably? What are you, if I give you, I don't know, 2 months of time, can you do it? I mean, it's really hard.
Well, somebody listening to this is definitely going to be doing it, because can you imagine if you could kind of create this churn prediction tool where you know what tools or companies are using, and if you can hear or see anywhere around the internet that they might be looking for something else?
Yeah. Yeah, but what I'm saying is, you cannot ask, you cannot give an AI all that input, have one prompt, and expect an output. I don't see that happening. Also with what I see a lot of going wrong, and then workflows or any automation workflows. I think you should try to strip out the AI as much as possible. You need to make it as narrow as possible for your use case, and maybe make it multiple steps and verify those steps. Like, if you wanted to use something in another system, for example, you can ask your AI to give your JSON output, for example, or YAML output, or whatever you want to use. But you need another node to check if it did. Because it's an AI, it's an LLM. In nature, it won't necessarily do what you ask it to do, or make mistakes.
There are scary levels of trust that people have put on to AI.
And that's indeed the scary part, and especially with workflows. If it works 95% of the time, that sounds nice, but that's horrible. That's horrible. If one in 10, 1 in 20, 1 in 30 goes wrong, that's you're not going to have a fun time with that workflow. No. So you need to iron out all those issues and make sure that the LLM provides the right output, validate that, and chunk it.
It puts so much at risk. So even when you mention like 1 in 30, imagine if there's one mistake that hits 1 in 30 of your customers. That's 4 potential relationships you're putting at risk just because of a invalid or an unproven level of trust into AI for a specific task. And it's definitely something that I'm worried about. Is that as much as I enjoy working with AI for research, for editing these videos using Riverside, and there's no sponsorship here, it does make life a whole lot easier. But there, you always need to double check. I want to circle back to one last question that I asked in the beginning. You mentioned customers in Germany. Not necessarily jumping on that hype train to start making use of AI. From the customers that you've seen with Spryker, and I mean, just in terms of countries, what do you see a big difference between adoption and AI from different countries with less regulation compared to Germany, for instance?
No, not really. But maybe our spread isn't big enough.
No,
for that.
But your enterprise level, I mean, there's a
I think that's the
risk
biggest
at first.
Yes, that's the big limitation that I see with a lot of these companies. That they're very risk averse, or and hosting these things themselves. So when they do it, they want to host AI themselves. So there's a bigger hurdle, because then of course you need AI. You need to pick your vendors. You need to make sure your self-hosting is secure as well. Get that through your legal and IT department. So those things take time. You cannot just buy a ChatGPT license or use the free version and connect it to a system that you're using.
No, absolutely not. Well, I hope the rollout of AI within Spryker keeps on continuing.
Yes.
I love these hackathons that you mentioned, and I'd love to hear a little bit more about those kind of offline experiences there. But it's been great catching up with you because I think it's been a long time. I think it was a Google Analytics conference one time in Amsterdam the last time we chat. Oh, you looked it up? 6 years. Wow.
Pre-COVID.
Pre-COVID.
Couple months before, yeah.
Wild time. Yeah, indeed. That was it was I think it was in the winter sometime somewhere. It was at least it was dark by the time the show ended. But it was great catching up, and thanks for sharing your experiences around AI and community building, with N8N and your thoughts about where it's going in the future.
You're welcome. Awesome. Thanks.
Bye, Guido.